Yay, we are live. Happy Tuesday, besties and bosses. Happy last live stream of the year. I cannot believe it. I'm multitasking here, always a little horribly. I'm going to pull this up in my group to make sure I can see comments because I don't always see them through the app. But now I don't see my group. How strange. Let's see here. All right, well, we're going to see if I can see my comments through this. I really want to see your comments for this. I'm so excited to see you all, though. Let me set this up. Let's say hi, happy end of 2023. How are you all feeling as we close out the year? I forget how many days there are left. I was doing the math for a couple of days and now I've lost track. For those of you who celebrate Christmas, are you ready? Have you bought your gifts? For those of you who celebrate Hanukkah, I know it's over, but hope you had a wonderful Hanukkah. How are y'all feeling about the new year? I'm in all the holiday feelings and excitement and spirit. I finished most of my gifts yesterday. We have to pick up one gift today that's waiting for us right around the corner. Tried to do as many gifts as possible from local Brooklyn places. I live in Brooklyn, New York. So almost all, might have a few things that were specific gifts. Almost all of our gifts come from local stores that are like within a 2-block radius, which is very fun. I also wore color for y'all. I never wear color. I'm pretty much always in like black and white and gray and sometimes some blue. But look, I got all the holiday color for y'all because this is a conversation I want to have. Okay, so I can see their comments, but it doesn't let me see them. All right, I want to jump because I've got a lot I want to say in this conversation as well. Oh, okay, I figured out how to see that. Hi, Emma, glad you can make it too. Hi, Josephine, nice to see you all. Okay, I can see the comments on this setting. Perfect, so I don't need to be in my group. Okay, let me make a couple of announcements and then we're gonna dig in because I've got a lot I wanna share. This is an important topic. If you're watching live, say hi. I am giving away a free strategic planning strategy session for 2024 to one person. You've just gotta leave a comment. Yes, I'm bribing you to be here. Yes, if you're a client of mine, if you've already won a session, you are eligible for this. This is a specific free session where we will plan out your 2024 year. I wanted to do that because this conversation feels so important and I feel like this is one of those things where I'm like, I need to share this with as many people as possible. So yes, I'm bribing you to be here live and I also really appreciate having you live. Josephine says, lovely, the color looks gorgeous. Thank you. Hi, Laura. Josephine's laughing at me. I think you are. I'm also noticing, it's kind of funny, maybe this is just on my side. I have a Logitech camera, is that how you say it? It almost makes me look like I kind of have a tan. Y'all, if you ever meet me in person, I do not have a tan. I am like I'm like the palest person you've ever met. So that's kind of fun. Maybe it's the color I'm wearing. Okay, so say hi. You will get entered to win that session. Other announcements, we are giving away free access to my 6-week sales course, Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout, until January 1st. I'll drop a link after this. There's also a post floating in the group, or you could hit the banner at the top of the group. This walks you through the mindset as well as mapping out a sales process, so to bring in those right fit leads, as well as how to host sales calls and follow up and navigate objections without being a gross, slimy human being, and how to book out and hold those sales in your business. I think it's an excellent course. We usually charge, we charge $99 for it. I want it to be so accessible. I think this is such an important sales skill for every business owner, but it's my holiday gift to you. Gifts are my business love language if you didn't know. So that is, you don't have to do anything for that. That's just free. You can unsubscribe after if you want. You will get instant access to all, I think it's like 30 plus video trainings for that. Laura says, so here for the bribe. I'm so here. I'm here for bribing people. One of my clients said that today. She's like, I've got my bribe ready for my people. I'm like, I'm here for the bribes as well. Who doesn't like a good bribe? A good legal bribe, we should say. Other announcement for those of you who are curious, I know a couple of people have reached out. January intensives and one-on-one spots are full. I am booking for February and the rest of the year. So if you're interested in a coaching intensive, a VIP day, which I can do virtually as well, or one of my ongoing spots, I am still taking discovery calls, or you can book a free chemistry session, but those will be for spots opening up in February. There's probably a spot this week, but there's consultations in January that we still have a few open. So feel free to take me up on that if you're interested in working together, but just so you know, the availability will start in February. Okay, let's dig into the good things. I think those are all of the comment. Oh, Laura says the sellout course is so good. I go through it about once a year, so helpful at any phase in business. Grab it. That makes me so happy. Also, if you take the course, I recorded this during COVID. I have COVID hair. It is like I have the world's longest hair. I would like some of that hair back at this point because I recently cut it off. But Laura, that makes me so happy. Yes, please grab it. Please take me up on it. It's completely free, y'all. Like, there's really no catch. There's like no upsell that you're expected to pay me anything. I just want you to have this. I know that sounds like almost like there's a catch in our space, but I just actually really care about everybody in this group having a sustainable business and making money and being a voice in our industry for things that are in integrity. I make more than enough money. That's part of what we're going to talk about today. I am very content. There's enough to go around. So please take me up on the course. Josephine says, love the bribe. Can't wait to get access to it. Haha, COVID hair. I almost said COVID hair was real. COVID hair was so real. COVID hair was so real. COVID was such an interesting time. Anyway, let me not digress because we've got a super important conversation. So we're going to talk about, spoiler alert, it's in the title. I didn't make more money this year, and I want to talk about it through quite a few different lenses. I'm going to share what I really and honestly think about this, some of the conversations going on behind closed doors that I've probably spoken to some of this year in this group, but I think there's a couple in particular around end of the year revenue that I think are just so important, whether you made more or less money this year, to understand. I'm going to dive into some of the nuances around this and just around what I think about this number and some of the nuances of those numbers. And then I'm also going to share a really surprising financial takeaway that I had this year, and 2 reasons. This is going to sound so cocky, but it's just the truth. I believe this year is setting me up for $1 million a year, and I'm going to share the 2 reasons for that. So lots of good things to dive into. As I'm talking through this, I'm having this conversation, obviously, for you all. I already know my numbers. I already have these conversations behind closed doors. So if you have questions, anything that doesn't feel clear or that feels funky, please, that's why I wanted you to join live. I so want us to have this conversation. And one of the reasons, I'll actually preface this, one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation is I don't want to just be the person who's like, hey, I made an extra $132K this year in my business, because a couple years ago we had that conversation, and I'm so proud of that, and I'm so here for that, and I love being a representation that you can have a one-on-one only model, you can do things your way, you can make great money. And I also want to show what business is really like, and that business is not a flat line, and that it is not no business, literally no business in our space. I invest in the stock market. I love my money and I love the stock market, right? Apple does not always year after year grow. And that is very normal. And there's something funky in our space. And look, it's marketing, but sometimes in our space, the message is you're only successful if you're always growing every year, and you should scale at any and all costs. And I think it's such a detrimental message for so many reasons, but it's also just not a reality. There is no business in 3D reality that grows every single year, that scales every single year. And even businesses that look like they're always doing that, there's usually something not sustainable, or they're not super profitable, or they're out of business later on. And so again, I just want to be that representation of both. And I have many clients this year who made far more money than me and blew it out of the water. I have a client who crossed the $1 million mark. I have a client who, I don't know their exact numbers, I think they're at around the 700K mark this year. I have a client who added 30K and crossed into the multi-6-figure mark. I had a client who, I think they're having their first 6-figure year. They definitely had their first and highest 10K months. A client who had their first 20K months. A lot of clients who had their biggest this year. And so I want you to see that is also, like, I'm here for that. That is also a case. And I did not make more money this year. So we're going to dig into that and some of those details. I just want to see the comments. Josephine says, love the transparency. Thank you. I mean, don't applaud me for this. I think thank you for saying that, but I think it's also just helpful to say, this is just the realness of every business. So let me actually, hold on. So I'm going to go off on 14 tangents otherwise, because if you can't tell, I feel quite strongly about this. And I made a couple of notes because there are a couple things I wanted to hit on. So let me just give you a couple of nuances with my numbers first, just so that we're on the same page. And I was mindful, I almost wasn't going to share numbers with you all because I don't want this to be a conversation about numbers. I think sometimes can have us both feel like, oh, that's all you made, or oh my gosh, you made that much, like who cares, like if you didn't make more. I think we can almost get wrapped around the number itself, and that's kind of not the point. And I also want to be a representation for what you can make as a one-on-one coach, and just to give you some context there. So I usually say that my business makes around $350K a year with room to scale. On the high end, we've made around $365K. Last year, I believe, I didn't actually look this up. I believe we made around $328. This year, there's still some big payments coming in for clients who pay me in advance. So I'm not exactly sure of the numbers, but we're probably going to close out around the same, maybe a little bit less, but probably somewhere in that 300 to 325K mark. So just to give some context there. Now, nuance. Oh, lots of nuance here. I have a one-on-one only model. So personally, I think that's great for one-on-one, but that also means I have a pretty low overhead. So I have a really great profit margin. The year that I made 365K was also, and I think this is why it's helpful to hear, was a year that it was COVID, I accidentally overbooked myself, and I was holding about 29 to 30 clients, many of whom were paying old coaching rates of mine before revenue share. I wasn't mad at it. That was COVID. It accidentally happened. But also I think just, we sometimes hear, oh, like, that's the goal to go for. But I know that pushing for that number without revenue share, for those of you who don't know, my clients now pay me a base rate and then 10% of new revenue they make while working with me. And so I could technically have like just hustled and booked in more clients this year and like made more of that top line revenue. But I also know that that's not sustainable at all. And I think that's something we sometimes lose in this space where it's like, there's ways any business can make more money. You can price in a way that isn't in alignment. You could burn yourself out. But part of what I want to talk about this conversation is profitability and sustainability. So that's a little bit in terms of the numbers. And then some other nuance, because I think someone's brain is going to be like, well, with revenue share, if you had a client who crossed $1 million and 700K, how does that math work out? So those are clients who have worked with me for years and they are grandfathered in. I grandfather all my clients in. I know someone's going to think that is bad money mindset and I could charge them more and I could make more money and I should like have them pay revenue share. That doesn't feel good to me. I like to honor clients who stick around. I like to bribe people. No, but seriously, one-on-one work. I know there are going to be people who think I'm like, don't understand this. My clients will understand this. I love money and I want to make $1 million. And also I both care and don't care. I care so much more about my clients and the work. And I love long-term client relationships. So I want to incentivize that. So it feels really, really good to me to grandfather clients in and to honor that long relationship. I don't feel like I'm missing out or leaving money on the table. I don't think it's a bad money mindset. Someone's welcome to say that, but that's where my head is at with that. And was there, Tanya says, I love how you're the voice of reason. Thank you. Josephine says your integrity is second to none. Oh, I really appreciate that. I hope everyone is in integrity this way. I think also just to be fair, thank you for saying that, but I think also to be fair, I'm also in a position where I can share this. I think a lot of businesses, it's not that they don't want to be in integrity. I think for a lot of businesses, it wouldn't serve them to share this. I just made 35K in like 3 days booking spots in January. January is already going to be bigger than like a lot of this year. Because my business is very sustainable, I think I'm in a position where it's a lot easier for me to share these things. Thank you for saying that. Thank you for saying that. What was the other thing I wanted to share with the nuance on those numbers? Because I do feel like that's important to say. Oh, okay. So the other thing I think is helpful to understand is, so the numbers this year, and none of this is me, I don't feel like I owe anyone an explanation. I'm honestly very chuffed at my numbers, but just I think it's helpful for understanding like how does someone with one-on-one make those numbers. So now I have revenue share. Revenue share this year is actually up, and we made more in revenue this year than ever before. To me, that's the number I'm most proud of, because that means my clients are doing really well. And especially since my client who scaled to $1 million and 700K, like those big numbers aren't included in revenue share, to have newer clients and to have more money from revenue share than ever before, to me, I'm like, that means I made more in revenue share because my clients are making more money. That is like the most exciting, happy making thing to me ever. And our profitability went up. So my client roster went down. I was obviously overbooked at 29 to 30 one-on-one clients. I'm sure there are people who can hold that. I can technically hold that, but that I do a lot of between session support and review content. That was during COVID when like we weren't doing anything, but like I do have a life now. The COVID is over. So that's too many clients for me to hold. So my general one-on-one roster is about 20 to 25 clients. This year I held more around 20. I think maybe we had 22, 23 at some months, but for context there. So my workload went down a bit and my profit margin went up quite a bit this year. And so our profitability went up. So a couple of things with that I think are helpful to know. One, the reason for that is I've just been in business for a while. So certain things just got way easier and more efficient, and my team got more efficient. But and we're going to talk about this in a moment, but our industry changed quite a bit this year and we had to do a lot of adapting. So I took back quite a bit of content creation that I had been previously having a copywriter help like repurpose, not write it, but repurpose from like the podcast and live stream. So we also just cut out some of our expenses. So between those two pieces, even though I'm not making more money this year, top line revenue, and I didn't have like the top of our roster, I paid myself the same amount this year in terms of take home cash. I still invested $35K into my retirement. Our profitability went up. I mean, like in terms of the finances, not a whole lot changed. And I think that's really, really important to hear, because when I think about like what's my honest thought about how do I feel about not making more money this year, I'm like, well, yes, we would always, like, the goal is to scale over time, and businesses don't always grow every year. And this year, this is the conversation happening behind closed doors that I want to bring here, because I think it's just helpful for everyone to normalize and to know whether you made less money this year, more money this year, or about the same. For the majority of businesses in our space, there was a massive contraction in our online space. The economy was affected, but also our personal industry. So I would say about 90% of businesses made less money this year. We've seen so many businesses go out of business, and not because I think there's many factors for that we talked about in our last live stream, but I'm in a mastermind with very successful, very smart business owners. I do think, again, I've had clients who scaled this year, but not all of my clients scaled. Some of them sustained. And I think what we forget about in business is if there's a year like this and you're sustaining your business, in my opinion, to me, that is like, well, fuck. Buckle up, because what happens when we're not in a contraction and we're in a buyer's market and things turn around? That means there's something really solid here. Look, it's one thing to make great money during the year of COVID when like we're all locked in and like the online space is blowing up. It's another to sustain your business, even if you made a little bit less this year. In a year that businesses are shutting doors or like stressed out, to be sustainable, to still pay yourself well, to have profit margins even stay the same. You don't necessarily have to have your profit margin going up. I think that was just because of very specific factors. To me, that is very, very, very exciting. And I share that because for two reasons. One, if you're not privy to the same behind the scenes information I am, and you had a year where you're like, I didn't make as much money this year, or this year felt so much harder, or it felt more challenging, or like, gosh, I had to rework so much of the back end of my business, or I had to work so much harder to get clients, or we made just about the same amount of money. I think it's very easy to think, am I the only one? Did I do something wrong? Am I fucking things up? Am I not a good business owner? Is my business gonna collapse? Should I worry about the economy? And what I would offer you as a reframe is, I would see that as, holy shit, I am onto something. This is good. This is something to be so proud of. This means I have the kind of business that can stand the test of time, that's going to be around for, as long as you want to have a business. I personally plan on being around for decades. I expect to be like the annoying old lady on the online space who's like figured out technology, and I'm like too old for the online space, if the online space still exists, that's still doing this, because that's how much I love this work, right? I want my business to stand the test of time. And so that is my honest opinion. That's how I feel about this, but that's also, I think, part of the conversation we need to be having more of. Emma said, let me just say this. Josephine says, love the sustainable aspect. Emma says it's a huge testament to your clients. Thank you. I love my clients. I have the best clients. Also a testament to them. Emma says yes. Josephine says that's amazing. 2023 was a tough year, so you did amazing to stay the same. Thank you so much. And I don't want this to be like, oh, let me pat myself on the back, but also I think just for some context for everyone in this group, because I was just on a mastermind call with some friends, and pretty much I don't know everyone's on, but I think pretty much everyone either stayed the same or had a slight dip this year. And I don't think anyone necessarily knows what I'm talking about, so I don't think I'm portraying anyone's numbers or anything because that's confidential, but I don't think you all know who I'm talking about. And I think these are all people who have been in business for a long time, who are high multi-6, 7-figure plus business owners. And so I think it's just helpful to know like that's just kind of what's gone on across the board in businesses. And again, of course, there are people who are, like I said, I have a couple clients who crushed it this year. Maybe some of you did. Like, there are those outlier cases, but for the most part, most businesses stayed the same or dipped a little bit. And that is also normal when we look at the span of a business over multiple year spans. if you follow the stock market, if you look at Apple, for example, Apple, I just use as an example because they're quite a stable company. Don't take this as investing advice or anything like that, though I do invest in Apple. And I'm very happy with that stock. But if you look at them over, multiple years, right, there are some years that are higher than others. Some years they dip a little, some they sustain, but their overall trajectory is going up. And we've talked about this before in terms of month-to-month revenue, which I don't even love people thinking about month-to-month revenue because I think that's only in our online space do we do that. No other space talks about month-to-month revenue, but that's a different can of worms, a different hill that we don't need to get onto today. But I think when you're looking at your business that way, I think it's important because, again, I just know because I have this conversation with so many clients. Otherwise, it's so easy, like, wow, I suck. Or maybe I should quit my business. Or this means there's something wrong with me. Or why am I not making as much as so-and-so? Instead of understanding, well, wait a second, what's going on? Now, if I had this year, the year of COVID, for example, so COVID was the year before, so we made 365K that year. We added 132K on that year. So whatever that was the year before, it was like I can't do the math in my head, 225, something like that. So that year we did add on quite a bit. Now, if that year I had stayed the same or dipped, and that was a year where the industry boomed, I would not have made myself wrong, but I do think I would have been curious as to what's going on there when the space is thriving and things are kind of blowing up and it is a lot more of a seller's market, and that's kind of what we're seeing. I would have not made myself wrong as a business owner, but I would have wanted to look at what's going on in my business. Whereas this year, and again, I want to keep saying this for all of you to look at your business this way, I would see that as such evidence for health in your business. And I think starting to look at, yes, I don't know, everyone doesn't necessarily want to scale. Many people want to scale. Most of my clients want to scale. But I think part of scaling that we forget about is also integration and sustainability. And I care more about profitability than simply scaling alone. And that's almost a whole nother conversation in and of itself. But I also know, and part of the reason I want to have this conversation is it's so easy to have something like this. And I was just having a conversation with a client this last year where it's like the reaction is almost like, great, well, this is a problem. How do I fix it? How do I hurry up and almost scale at any cost? And what we were having to talk about is there's actually not a problem here. You integrated, your business is sustainable, your business is profitable. We can definitely talk about ways to scale, but let's make sure that's still sustainable the way you actually want to scale and that it's actually profitable. Because if you make $1 million and it costs you $950K, like said with so much love and not trying to be an asshole, my business that made far, far less top line revenue makes way more profit and take home cash than that. And so I think that's just something, especially as we're going into the new year, as we're closing out this year and looking at end of year numbers, but going into the new year and thinking about revenue goals and things like that, these are things I want us to all be thinking about because it's just so easy otherwise to get wrapped up in the noise online and to get wrapped around the axle of goals that aren't yours, of business models you don't want, or of chasing scaling at any cost, which can leave you feeling burnt out, but also just not paying yourself a whole lot. Okay, hold on. Let me just see. And then I do have other things I want to share on this. Let's see here. Carrie says, love the mindset around what you're saying. Thank you. Love you. Emma says, are you willing, totally fair if not, to share how much you cut back in your expenses? Yes, totally will share that. Laura says, haha with you. I've been on quarterly revenue this year and it's a game changer mindset wise and helps track data better. I really appreciate you saying that. Again, there's nothing wrong with everyone counting your monthly revenue, but I think that's just helpful. I think that's just how we speak in our online space and they're fun things to celebrate, but most businesses are tracking by quarters or half a year or by the whole year. And I think it is so much more better for tracking data. If we know results take around 90 days minimum to play out, I think it makes so much more sense on every level. And it is also crazy making. I was talking about this with one of my clients recently. I think the month-to-month revenue for a lot of business owners can almost start to feel like a scorecard where it's like, can I hit this amount to feel good about myself? And then the scorecard sets to 0 at the next month. And y'all, please, can we please stop using revenue as a scorecard for your worth or your ability or the health of your business? Like, please, please, please. Let's see. Emma says, yes, so for tracking things quarterly, heck yes. Profitability is key. I would say that scaling is about profitability. Yes. I agree with what you're saying. I think the actual definition of scaling is, I think the way our online space speaks about scaling is not always. Josephine says, love the idea of tracking things quarterly. It is so much, it's more how business, I think, business in air, not in air quotes, how business outside of our online space tracks things, but I think it's also really great for regulating the nervous system. Oh, okay. Emma's question, and then I'm going to come back because I do have a lot more I want to share here. So Emma, I'm going to give you vague numbers, loose numbers, just because without having spreadsheets and things in front of me, because I have multiple team members, it would be a little tough to like know exact amounts. But we cut back about 1,000 or 1,500 per month on copywriting. And again, this wasn't because the copywriter if anyone needs a copywriter, I don't know if she's taking clients. She's excellent. She's wonderful. We were repurposing content from my podcast and live stream to use on social media, and that was working great in the past. And when I had 29, 30 clients, I did not have time to write all, like that was a great way for us to have content go out. And one of the things we're going to talk about a little bit in a second is the online space has shifted so much this year. And a lot of what I've been focused on is taking my content back, but also like just looking at what do we need to adapt to the online space so that we can sustain and so that next year is set up to be a bigger year. And so part of that, we took the content back. I just want to make sure, because some people might know who she is. She's an excellent. I had nothing, like I was bummed to let her go, but that was the right decision for the business and what the business needed. And we were already very, very profitable. So we didn't cut that for like the reason of profitability. It just happened to increase profitability per month. And then overall, I'd say across like OBM, VA expenses, we probably trimmed a good, just doing the math in my head of like top what I usually spend. I think we trimmed a good 1,000 to another 1,500 per month. And that had a lot more to do with efficiency and looking at data. I know you're a data person. Like, what do we need to do? What don't we need to do? Like, what's the shit we can like literally stop pouring team time and energy in? And I think this is important for everyone to hear. It wasn't like I was like, we have a profitability problem, let's cut stuff. I'm just always looking at what actually gets us results. I would be very, very happy to spend more and to cut into our so-called, it's not so-called profitability, but to cut into our profitability temporarily if I saw a reason and a benefit for that. We just, certain things, just my team, many of my team members have been on my team for 2 or 3 years. So they just get, everything just gets easier and more well-oiled. We have very solid systems, very solid processes, and but we also just trimmed some things. Like this is just one example, but I tested out doing 2 podcast episodes per week, and we literally weren't seeing that move the needle, and so we dropped that. So like that's an expense not just on editing, but on my VA who needs to take that and schedule that to the email, on the person who has to schedule that to Libsyn, on the graphics we make for that, on the social media content that gets scheduled, right? There's all these extra things we pay for. So just cutting that one thing ends up cutting cost. Okay, Emma says, I love hearing that. Yes, I do know you love hearing that. So win for data. It is quite helpful. It saves you a lot of money. Okay, let me pull my notes up here because there are definitely other things I wanted to share. So we talked about normalizing this. I have a note here. I didn't know if I wanted to say this out loud or not, but I'm just going to say it. I have many clients who do not have a one-on-one model, who don't want a one-on-one model, that a one-on-one model is not right for. So please do not hear me as saying that this means you should have a one-on-one model. I so support my clients. We've had some very successful launches this year, and there are a lot of other models, and I might even be, spoiler alert, I might be adding something on next year that I will still always have one-on-one. Do not worry, one-on-one clients. Like, that's not going anywhere, but something that I'm very excited and playing with. So there are other models that I really believe in, and something that I also want to be a voice for, because I have gotten so much shit in the 7.5 years I've been in business around having a one-on-one only model and scaling one-on-one, and how like you have to rush to hurry up to like get out of one-on-one, and you can't do that and make good money doing that. And one of the things I saw at the end of this year, I was like, you know what? Like, kind of fuck everyone who said that, because if anything, this shows me how sustainable a one-on-one model is, and how sustainable this business is. And I think one of the reasons is I do think there's something to be said for one-on-one. You don't have to have as huge of an audience. When there's huge contractions in the online space and all these shifts we have to make and ad spend going up, and again, all of my clients, and I navigated that who are in that space. I'm not making that at all wrong, but there was a lot more for my clients who had that to navigate. And with one-on-one, you also, it's quite easy to stay. I stayed fully booked all year. Sure, we didn't have like the high of my fully booked, but we still have between 20, 22, 23 clients every month. And that was relatively easy to do. Yes, we had to implement some new strategies and lean in a little bit more this year because this was a contraction year, but it honestly wasn't, it wasn't very stressful. It felt very sustainable. So I also, this is the note. I was like, I don't know if I want to say this because I don't want to make it seem like my way is the right way, but also the voice to everybody who has said this isn't the right way. I think it's just nice evidence to see that. And Rich Lichtman talks about this a lot, and I just so stand by this in my business, doing things that don't scale to scale. And this isn't necessarily a live stream about scaling, but if I have seen anything this year, I have just seen how being willing to do shit that doesn't scale and being willing to show up in your business and not being too good to do things, too good to be of service, being willing to not over deliver from like a burnout perspective, but kind of taking your ego out of things and not thinking that everything's just always supposed to scale, I think is the thing that sets you up to scale. I think doing things that don't scale to scale that has been one of the things that has served me in business. And that is one of the things that, yes, I saw how sustainable our business is this year, but I think that's also one of the reasons my business stayed really sustainable. We did a live stream about this at the beginning of the year. I saw the tides changing in in November of last year. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, buckle up. This is what this year is. Like, I see what's happening because I'm on one-on-one calls every day. What do we need to adjust? What do we need to shift? Where do we need to get and serve more? And literally, how do we do things that don't scale? Taking my content back. I opened up free sessions for the first time in over 5 years, and I have loved them so much, y'all. I will try to keep, we're going to hit like max like probably again next year, but I will still try to keep opportunities for them because I just love them so much, and they have just connected me with some of the most wonderful humans. But these are all things, quite honestly, they're not, it's not necessarily scalable to offer free one-on-one sessions or to do some of these things, but I do think those have been some of the difference makers. And I just want to be a voice for that, but I think it's also helpful to hear. And these are some of the conversations I'm having with peers as well. The peers I'm seeing who have sustained this year, they're also doing things to scale. Many of them have different models and are paying for ads and are doing different things, but they've also, pretty much everyone who's sustaining, or even if they dipped, who's like in a like healthy range with their business, who didn't go out of business this year, who's been in business already, who didn't start their business this year, has rolled up their sleeves and has just had to be willing to not do some things at scale for a moment or to rework things. Everyone, I think, who's still doing well right now has had to rework messaging and content and funnels and strategies. And again, I just want to both be a voice for the one-on-one, but also just normalize this. So if you felt like you had to do that this year, again, if you're just like, am I the only one? You're not the only one. If you're doing that, I would just be proud of yourself and see that means you put on your CEO hat this year, and that is part of being a business owner. And then all of that will stack up and pay off for you next year or the year after when everything starts to shift a little bit. Hopefully that makes sense. Don't mind my little one-on-one crush rant there. Okay, I had other things I was going to say, but throw questions at me if you have them. Okay, so the other things I want to talk about, the surprising financial win, which we kind of already talked about, but this actually feels quite important to say. And then the 2 ways I really believe this is setting me up for $1 million year, which I know sounds counterintuitive, but we're going to talk about that. And I'm hoping this will help you see the same for yourself. And just seeing, no questions there. So the surprising win this showed me. So this is kind of twofold. We already talked about, turns out we are more profitable than last year. But here's what this really showed me that was part of the sustainability piece, but that I'm trying to think of the right way I want to frame this, because so this is a bit of a dichotomy, a bit of a bothness conversation. I am such a big believer in supporting clients to having really big visions and believing those are possible for them. I also very much want and believe I will have $1 million per year business, right? So like holding that bigness, and for some people $1 million might not be big, but I think for a one-on-one practice, to me, that feels like the next big goal, right? Or $500,000, whatever. Like I'm very much in support of that. And so I want you to hear what I'm about to say here as not against that. But what I really saw this year, and I think there's something, if anything, this helps support reaching those bigger income goals. I just saw with that sustainability how little I need more money. And I'm also mindful, because I feel like this sounds very privileged, but I mean this in a way to actually help give some context around, or like unhooking from chasing or putting pressure on yourself to make more at any expense, not in a like, I don't need any more money kind of a way. But what I see and what I support so many of my clients with is how sometimes you can just get caught up in this rat race online where it's like no amount of money feels like enough. And not, I don't even think from a greedy place. I think from a like, oftentimes when you don't feel safe, or you don't feel like you're good enough, or you feel like the bottom's going to fall out, or you're stuck in proving energy, or you're stuck in like feeling like when you hit a certain amount of money, then you're finally going to feel, insert the blank, like you're finally going to feel good enough, you're finally going to feel safe, you're going to finally feel like you've arrived, you're going to finally feel like you've made it, you're going to finally feel happy. I think it can become this conditional, but the yardstick keeps getting moved. And I know I did a live stream on this maybe a year or two ago. There was a point when I started my business, I just wanted to make 60K a year in my business. I was like, if I can just coach people, I mean, like, I will feel like I've made it now. I live in New York City. I'm the main breadwinner for my family. I like to invest pretty heavily because I want lots of money when I retire, and I want the option to work or not work, all of those things. But so 60K didn't actually turn out to be the most realistic number for New York City. But I think just for context here, and then I probably that year when I was making around 200K, I kind of got into the mentality of like, oh, I just need to keep making more and more and more. Like when I hit this amount, then I'll have made it. Then I'll be a good coach. Then people will think I'm serious. Then I'm successful. Then I'm good enough, right? I got caught up in that a little bit, and I've really done the work to unwind that. And what this year showed me is, I've unwound from that, which just feels very regulated and good, because it means you can actually focus on the work. And the work meaning the work with your clients, but also the work in terms of, we did a lot of like rolling up our sleeves and just like looking at data, talking about data, and looking at my messaging and looking at content and just reworking things and figuring out what's working and not working and getting that sort of work as well. But also just like the actual, like the reason we all started our business in the first place. But the other thing that I think is just very, a big reminder is something, and I know past me would have been like, Kim, you're such an asshole for saying this. I'm really wanting to be mindful of like depending where everybody's at. And I also think I would have needed to hear this. I just really see how if I made an extra 100K this year in my business, nothing would have changed in my life. Literally, the only difference is we would have had a different title on this live stream, and I'd be having a slightly different conversation, probably still sharing some of the same things and maybe just some different nuances in terms of like what worked. But my day-to-day life would not have changed. I would have paid myself probably the same amount, because I pay myself a very healthy salary, and honestly the rest I probably would want to invest, and so I would just invest it elsewhere. Maybe I would have bought an extra painting. That was one of the things this year. If you know my art journey, we got 3 pieces of fine art, and so yes, maybe I would buy a bougie investment in like a nice piece of art. But outside of, even if I got a beautiful piece of art, those are so lovely to have. But you all know how this works. You get something brand new, you move into a new place, whatever happens, and it's so exciting. And then like 3 weeks pass or 4 weeks pass, and it just becomes your new normal. I love our paintings, but like that's just the new normal. You integrate into it. And so I'm just very aware that there's a huge difference between 0 to 6 figures. And even from 6 figures to, I would say 3K. My coach did a live stream on this. I do think there's that window in between where, yes, you're making great money, but because expenses haven't necessarily caught up to revenue, and I think there's a lot there where like it still feels abundant, but I think there is quite a big difference from that to when you kind of cross over maybe the 250 to 300K mark. But after that, the difference, especially after New York state taxes and city taxes, the difference to your day-to-day is really quite negligible. There's literally nothing in my life that I couldn't have right now that I want, and I have lots of surplus and savings and all of that. And I say that because, again, I think it's just so easy to think, well, I didn't hit this revenue number, there's something wrong with me, there's something bad. When I hit that, things will be different. And what I want you to remember is have that goal. I still absolutely want to make $1 million in a year. And I do think from 325, 350K, 400K to a million, that is a significant jump. I think there's a lot of increments in between there where I would just put money into investments. When I make $1 million, I will probably move into a larger apartment in New York City, because New York City is quite a different price range. But even then, I am not crazy. I know my day-to-day would look the same. I'd still be doing the same work. I would be as happy or as unhappy as I allow myself to be. My day-to-day and everything I do, like, I already have all of those things. It's not like I'm suddenly going to have like gold encrusted mugs or something, or start flying private all of the time. No judgment if anybody wants that. Like, all of those things would stay the same. I would have a bigger apartment, and after about 3 or 4 weeks, that would become my new normal, and it would be lovely, and I would be grateful for it. But the reason I want to make $1 million is more what I want to do with the money outside of the things for me, donations, investments, things like that. Also, there's just something for me where I just think that's a beautiful goal in a business to have, because it to me represents a lot of the impact I get to make. But I'm sharing this again because I think there's something for when you can see that and anchor into that, there's such a detachment around needing to make more money to prove something or to chase it or to make it at any means. And I think ironically, that is also when it's so much easier to make more money and to also enjoy your business and to be in business long enough to hit those bigger goals. Because as we're talking, if we know, like, look, this year was a sustaining year. Next year, I've already decided it's going to be a bigger year, right? I'm also going to have another year in the next 10 years. I don't know when. Not to create a story. This is how business works. I will have another year that will be a contraction or a sustaining year. So if we know that, how great to see, oh, and that would be okay. That wouldn't be a big deal. And also, like, whatever that is, you're at a place where, like, everything just feels so great, and that just makes it easier to ride that year so that you can then set yourself up to have the bigger years to get all the things you want. Is that making sense for you all? 'Cause I think it's that chasing, proving, pressure energy that we don't realize how much that actually pushes away, or that grippiness to, I've got to make this revenue goal at all costs. And again, I'm for those goals and supporting those and holding those, but when we're gripping them, that is actually, like, there's nothing that can come in when we're gripping. Let's see. Always moving the goalposts and never satisfied. So true, we have to do the inner work. And again, there's nothing wrong with moving the goalposts. I want to make sure everyone's hearing that. Like, I think there's something beautiful about always giving ourselves new challenges and growth, but it's when we're doing that because we don't think where we're at is okay or good, as opposed to, right? This is why I can have a revenue share model and why I feel really clean energetically around it, is because I know if I never make another penny in my business, I hope I don't die anytime soon, but I will die a content, happy person who's so fulfilled and loves my business and my life so much. I think I'm like a cheesy, sappy, overly obnoxious, grateful person, but I mean it so sincerely. And I'm also so here for, Emma says, haha, please get at least one gold encrusted mug. I'm so here for the gold encrusted mug. All right, Emma, when I make $1 million, we will get the gold encrusted mug. Or like the gold, aren't there like gold covered toilet seats? Isn't that a thing? I'm not judging, but I will say, maybe this is a conversation we need to have in the new year. I talked about this before, but I do think there's also something to this as a business owner where it's like both holding that, like, of course my business, like, I can always make more money. Of course we're going to scale, like being in that belief, but also knowing it is normal to have sustaining periods and even contractions and expansions. And so not just buying a gold encrusted mug because you can, and also being a good steward to your money. Like, I didn't need it, but this year also didn't stress me out because we have very healthy business savings and personal savings aside from investments that I built when my business in the last couple of years. So I never had to worry about paying, even if we hadn't cut some of the team things. If, let's say, we had to add on more of this, let's say in January, it was actually like, oh, I need to double on the copywriting. Actually, we need to invest in ads because that was one thing I was considering this year, right? I have the reserves where I'm like, great, we can pull from that. Like, I never have to worry about paying my team or myself. And so I think like we're joking about the gold encrusted mug, and maybe we'll get one just to be ridiculous, but I think there's something to remembering that as well, that it's just so easy. Like, I've got all this cash, like, almost how do I like spend it as quickly as possible? And that I do think is a mindset thing. Another conversation. I will go off on too many tangents. Next year's Christmas gift. Oh, interesting. Maybe this is what I need to get all my clients, gold encrusted mugs. Laura says the reminder to be detached is everything. Yeah, and I think thank you for bringing me back, Laura, because I'm being a little too silly here. But I think with detachment as well, I think we think of detachment as not caring. Not everybody, I think, but I think that can be the kind of the like, oh, I'm either attached and I want it so badly, or I don't care because I'm detached. And I think the nuance with detachment is I'm still here. Like, I absolutely have business goals. I absolutely plan on having our revenue increase. I'm not gonna be mad at the end of next year if we sustain for another year. I am detached in that way, but like I absolutely have those bigger goals. I just hold them so lightly because it's sort of like it's icing. It's like not even icing on a cake that's already so yummy to me. It's like the like final little like I don't know, like a wedding cake where you put the little couple on top or like the sprinkles, because I've already got a beautiful ice cake that I'm so happy with. I'm so content with. And I think that's kind of what I think the detachment that you're talking about. I think maybe just something that just really settled in for me this year in a whole new way. I've probably said that in the past, but I think I just really saw it where I was like, oh, it's so interesting to be in that place. Okay, I know I'm just gonna like keep rambling. So there was one other thing I promised y'all that I was gonna talk about. But if you have questions aside from where to even buy a gold encrusted mug, maybe we need diamonds on it, let me know. What was I gonna say? About this is, you know, all don't need to hear this. The term for that is the hedonic treadmill. I studied this in college. I actually helped. My part-time job in college was working with an author, did all of the research on his book that was all around happiness. I don't think he actually ever published the book, but I mean, like in the stacks at the library, because that's like when you still went to the library and I like had to pull up the microfiche and things. So like all the like nerdy psychological studies on like what increases happiness. Anyway, what we're talking about here is actually a very real thing, the hedonic treadmill, and that whatever goal marker we get to, we normalize, we acclimate to that, and then we always kind of want increasingly more and more. So it's very human, but I think remembering that is also important with the conversation we're having. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about is the two ways this is going to sound counterintuitive, but I'm hoping this will help you see how, whatever your year was like, if you had a big year, if you had a bigger year this year, whether you're new in business or you've been in business in a while, I was talking about this with a client she added on 30K revenue this year. And she was like, oh, I only added on 30K revenue. That's not exactly how she said it. But one of the things I was saying to her was like, listen, if you made more this year, you're a fucking unicorn. You should just be like, I am just a badass, like, and give yourself all the praise. But again, if you sustained this year, and even if you made less money this year, if you are still in business, if you are on this live stream, if you hung in this year, if you're still showing up, if you're still in the game figuring things out, like, you are winning at the game of business. Like, that is the thing I want you, if you hear nothing else from this conversation, that I really want you to hear and take away. And I mean that's not me like trying to be a cheerleader. If you're a client of mine, you know I'm such a pain in the ass because I will say exactly what I think that isn't always what you want to hear. I mean that so sincerely, and I mean that seeing peers who are, again, at the like high multi 6 and 7 figure mark, and I'm just seeing, like, I just see like that is winning. Okay. And so prefacing that with the two ways I see this year, and I believe this in like every cell of my body, I believe this year is what is setting me up for $1 million year. I feel like if I was one of those people who like spoke this way, I'd be like, watch me. Now, I don't know if it's going to happen next year because of my business model, but let me explain why. So first, I think it's just helpful to know we have seasons in business, just like we have seasons in life. And I've definitely talked about this before, but it's worth it with this conversation. There's always a contraction before an expansion. Or there's an expansion, then you usually have a contraction. This is just how, like, you see this in nature. We don't need to have a whole conversation about that here just because of time, but that's just kind of how things work. And part of the reason, though, I think is what happens in a contraction. I think we hear a contraction and we think, oh, fuck. We had a contraction in our online space this year, but I think it was really needed and really beautiful. And what it showed us is a lot of things. It showed us, and I mean this in a nice way, but I think it helped weed out some people who probably didn't really want to be in business. And I think it helped weed out some people who probably shouldn't have been in business. And I think it helped weed out some people who weren't in a lot of integrity and needed to get the F out of our space, right? So that's not a bad thing. And I think for those of us who are here, a contraction, a down year, a slow year, a buyer's market year, when the economy is down instead of up, I don't want to say the word recession because I know it freaks people out. I know we've done live streams on this, but I think even understanding recessions are like a temporary dip in the economy, a lot of times it's actually needed because what it is a correction. And we see then that correction happens, and otherwise we're seeing what happens with inflation, right? Like we sometimes need those corrections. So contractions happen before expansions, but I also think it's what happens in that contraction that really depends on what the expansion will be like. So we'll use the economy as an example. When the economy contracts, if everybody's running around like Chicken Little thinking the sky's gonna fall in and cashing in their stocks when the market's down and pulling all their money from the bank, and right, like that doesn't mean you're going to then, just because there's a contraction, you're going to have an expansion. If you're like me, maybe this is a little weird, but I think this is actually smart, where I'm like, oh, there's a contraction in the online space or in the market. Great. How do I put more money into the market? We outside of retirement, I bought more stock this year. I was like, cool, everything's on sale. This is great, right? But I think that behavior, so crypto is a really great example. This is not financial advice, but I dollar cost averaged some crypto last year when it was super down, and everybody's like, oh, this is out. Well, it's up now. I made a bunch of money basically overnight doing nothing in air quotes, because there was a contraction, but it's what I did in that contraction that now led to an expansion. It's the same in business. So we had a contraction or a sustaining year, but it's what was done in that contraction. We didn't run around like Chicken Little. We didn't pull all our stock, right? If anything, we doubled down and we made everything so much tighter in the back end of my business. That's why our profit margin increased, but also it has been so much fun revisiting content. I've had so much, I think I brought so much more fun and play and levity. I've been experimenting on Instagram more. If any of y'all, I'm not saying I have the world's best reels, but I have just had so much fun doing them. But these are all things that happened because we were in a contraction, and what we decided to do in that contraction, because I saw, hey, our online space isn't what it was in 2020. What do we need to do? And it's made me see how much I fucking love business and how much I love the process of business as much as the results of business. But because of what we did in this contraction, I think that is part of what will set us up for bigger results or for the expansion. I quite honestly, and I just want to see, no, there's no font. This is going to sound like I'm patting myself on the back, and I guess I am, but I just mean this sincerely. I think I've always been a very good coach. I think I'm an excellent coach. I wouldn't have picked a one-on-one only model and been here for 7.5 years. I've been coaching for 10 years, in business for 7.5 years. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think I was skilled at what I do. And I think this year made me a better coach. I think we're always growing. I'm always mastering my craft. I'm always deepening in my craft. I think it made me a stronger CEO. I was joking with my coach, and like, I feel like I became more robotic, and not in a way. I'm the most emotional, feeling sensitive human being probably like on this planet, like ex-actress here. Like, I cry for my clients' results all the time, and I'm very much a businesswoman, and I have very much a like pragmatic, neutral mind as well in terms of how I approach business. So I'm like people, emotion, feeling like excited for my clients. But I think this year I just that much more snapped into like, great, like what is the data? What is going on? How do we figure this out? How do we how do I treat this like a game? I'm like, just want to win, but like some games you don't have as good a hand. Some games you have a better hand, but just almost a little robotic, but as a human, very emotional, if that makes sense. I think it made me a better business owner. I think it made me a better CEO. I think I had to support clients at a higher, so it was interesting. During COVID, I think I stepped up and grew so much that year because I had to hold clients through COVID. And I mean, we all know, like that was just a whole world of things then. So that expanded me as a coach in one way. This year, I think because of the contraction in our space and what that meant for all of my clients, and also supporting them many of them to grow, to scale exponentially, I think it just really, in a beautiful way, helped me to like up-level my coaching ability or skill set or craft, however we want to frame that. So all of that I see in terms of what sets me up for $1 million a year. And I'm framing this, yes, I know this is like me patting myself on the back a little bit, but I'm framing this for you because I want you to hear this so that you can look back and say, even if I didn't make more money this year, even if I made a little less money this year, what are all the ways I showed up in a contracted industry, in a contracted year, in a contracted economy? How did I show up that is allowing me, that's setting me up to grow, or that I grew? Just like if we use the stock market as an example, just because you invest in the stock market when the stock market's down, that doesn't mean you lost money, right? If you're playing the stock market long term to win, a lot of times that's the best move you can make. I don't want to put money in, now that my crypto has gone up, I don't want to go put money into it now. That's silly. Like, that's when you lose money in the stock market. Not that you should treat your investments like a game. Please don't hear that. It's not Russian roulette at all. I take my investments very seriously. But, right, I think our brain thinks we're only winning if we're playing when things are going up, and that's kind of when we want to get in the game. But I really think it's, how do you get in the game when things are contracted? Like, how are you showing up then that sets you up for that expansion? Is this tracking? The other reason, quite honestly, is because we had the contraction. I know I probably am going to eat shit for saying this, and wish I hadn't said this at some point, but I just believe it. I think sometimes challenges and contractions are the biggest gifts for us. And I say that because I'm like, I also don't like watch what you say, Kim. I don't want like more challenges in 2024 or anything like that. But Flo, and I can never say his name, Milhai I'm going to butcher his name and it's horrible, but he talks about this in the book Flow, in terms of, we think we get happiness from like just chilling and eating bonbons, but most humans derive happiness and satisfaction in flow state, which is usually doing something really focused and a little bit challenging and excelling at that and conquering something and being on the other side of it. Most of us thrive with a little challenge. Now, that is different than like hardship and, you know what I mean, like grinding and grueling it out. But most of us actually thrive and feel happiest in that. But I also think that's when we are forced to see things differently because of the way this year played out. This is a term for my coach, to give credit where credit is due, Lacey Seitz. She used the term with me, just being willing to put everything on the table. And this year I was like, I'm just going to be willing to put everything on the table. And because of that, again, it let me experiment, it let me play. I'm having so much more fun creating content and creating reels and like playing around and showing up. But it's also opened me up to new ideas. And I had an idea not too long ago that I'm not ready to reveal yet, that I will share sometime next year. But I don't think I would have even had capacity, been in the mindset or place to have that if it had been a super expansion year, right? If we had been scaling a ton, like there kind of would have been no need. Not that we always have to create from that place, but I do think a lot of times when we're in a sustaining or slight contraction, that is where we grow, that is where we expand, that's where we refine, that's where we sharpen our saw. But I think that's also where some of the best ideas come from. And I have no idea how y'all are going to receive this when I share it with y'all. Y'all might be like, really, Kim? Or you might think it's the best thing since sliced bread. I just know I have not seen this in my periphery. I don't see anyone else sharing what I want to share with you all. And that gets me very, very, very excited. And that again was the result of a sustaining year. And so I wanted to offer, let me just see, love that you're teasing the idea. I'm having fun guessing, Laura says. You're welcome to guess. I'm very curious to hear your guess. Josephine says exactly, it's based on the results in history. Oh wait, Emma said, let's see. Emma says, yes, it's not patting yourself on the back. It's what's true, and it's so helpful to hear. Thank you for saying that. I mean, it is also patting myself on the back, but I'm okay with that. I also want to model that. I think that's also important for us to model, but I also really appreciate you saying that it is what's true, and I'm glad it's helpful to hear. Josephine says, you should pat yourself on the back. Love that question. And to Emma's comment, she says, yes, exactly. It's based on the results in history. Laura, yeah, I'm very, very curious to hear your thoughts. Hear your thoughts on it. I was talking about this is the last thought I'll close on. But the reason I want to share this all with you, and yes, I'm teasing this out. I'm champing at the bit, not chomping at the bit. I'm champing at the bit to tell you all, but I know because I do have a fully booked one-on-one roster because we did sustain this business. This is something I'm working on, and I can only dedicate a little bit amount of time each week because my clients are my main priority, and I don't want that to fall to the wayside. So it's going to take me a little while to do what I need to do to put things into place. And so I wanna wait to share the details until a little bit more is formed. I've got quite a good bit moving on the back end. And again, I'll be very interested to hear all of your your thoughts on this one when I share it. And I think it's great, and I think it's also, again, it's a blue ocean in that it's a need in the marketplace, and it's something I'm not seeing met anywhere else, and it's something I haven't seen anywhere else, and that's the bigger point of this conversation that I want you to take away from this, whatever you made this year, whether you made more money or less money. But it's a couple of things here to see that business is not a straight line, right? Revenue is going to ebb and flow over months, over quarters, over years. That is part of a normal, healthy business. What we're looking for is, over time, are you trending upwards? When we want to get concerned is if we're having huge dips, or huge peaks in value, or if over time we're trending downwards, right? If you're a Blockbuster, because there's a contraction or a shift or something in the space and you're not paying attention and you don't want to pivot and you don't want to adjust and you don't want to look at your messaging or your positioning or your offer, or you don't want to update technology. Blockbuster, that, I don't know if I'm dating myself, but they were a video chain store and basically did not stay up with the times, and Netflix pretty much, I think, put them out of business. Right? So that's when we want to be concerned and take a look at things, but otherwise you all are doing fine, and I want us to also see why that happens. It's not, yes, it's because economies fluctuate, but remembering, even when economies fluctuate, that's part of what keeps an economy healthy, and that's also what keeps your business healthy. And there are benefits from a contraction or a sustaining season, just like there are benefits from an expansion season. But I was in an expansion season a couple of years ago. I will tell you, what fell through the wayside that year was we repurposed tons of content, and I didn't get to create a lot new. That's okay, because that's what my business needed them. But that's what was happening. That was a year where there wasn't a lot of new innovative ideas, and that was okay because I was full and at past capacity at that point. But just seeing there are trade-offs and benefits for either, and that's why, generally speaking, we have a contraction and then an expansion and then an expansion and then a contraction. If you have a big launch, there's probably a ton of energy that goes into that. You have a big expansion, and then you probably do have to contract a little so you can serve all of those people who just came in through your doors. So I just want us to start to see how these are normal signs of healthy businesses, not you are doing something wrong, you are not good enough, there's something wrong with your business, there's something to worry about, especially as we're getting into the end of the year and we're taking a look at numbers, and you're going to see other people talking about numbers or not talking about numbers. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, because it would have been very easy for me to not really talk about it, and then the messaging is just like, I'm always making more money, and I just want to be that representation for what is actually normal and sustainable in our space. We're going to see if there's any other comments. Otherwise, y'all have been so lovely to hang with me for my very hyped up, I was drinking an extra coffee today, live stream. Josephine says, really intrigued. How did you come up with your revenue share model? Only if you want to share. I think it's very interesting, a great concept. I'll absolutely answer that before I hop off, and if anyone else has another question. I wish I could take credit for the innovation behind that idea, but that is how I pay my coach. So Lacey Seitz is a one-on-one coach. I've worked with her for, I keep saying 5 years. I just renewed with her. I think I've worked with her for 5.5 years, and we're going into our sixth, in the next 6 months, for 6 years. And she came up with the idea for revenue share, and that's her model, and I asked permission. I have adopted. So I both pay my coach that way and have clients pay me that way. I love it. I don't know how much you know of my background, but I spent 10 years acting, and then I worked as an agent in the advertising world, and both of those business models are very much based off revenue share. As an actress, I paid my agent and my manager 10 and 15% respectively. As an agent in the advertising world, we got paid a flat rate plus a percentage of what our directors booked. So it's a model that just really makes sense to me, and I love so much because I think it matches what we're talking about here, right? If we know businesses ebb and flow and revenue ebbs and flows, it's a way for me to, yes, have skin in the game with my clients, and when they win, I get to win as well. But it's also a way that when they're going through the ebbs and flows, and that also means when there's a bit of a contraction for them, they're not on the hook to pay me more. Obviously, they're paying the base rate, but they don't have to pay me more than that. So it feels like it really mirrors and respects how business is and what the intention for me as a coach is. And I love the models, but very much a shout out to my coach. I can't take credit for the innovation there. Okay, I don't think there's any other questions. So a reminder for you all, I will pick a winner for our free planning strategy session for 2024 from someone who is live here. If you were live and lurking, leave me a comment so we know to include you. We'll reach out tomorrow for those winners. You can still grab access to Sell Out Without Feeling Like a Sellout, my 6-week sales course. I will drop a link for that. And if you are interested in working together and you want someone who's going to be in it with you through the highs and the lows and who knows what is real in business, but who also very much gets the mindset and the strategy and has helped countless clients grow, sustain, and scale. I've helped 28 clients make 10K months or more, 15 clients make their first 6 figures, 3 clients scale to $1 million or more. Many of those clients who made 6 figures I've supported to multi 6 figures. I would love to support you. We are full for January, but I'm taking discovery calls or free chemistry coaching session calls for opening starting in February of the new year. Y'all, thank you so much for having this conversation, for being here. I love you so much. I appreciate you so much. I do not take this space for granted. I hope you have the most wonderful holiday, whatever it is you celebrate, and a beautiful new year. And then I will see you on the 2nd of January. We'll have a fun conversation then. Lots of love. Bye, y'all.